would do 2 fact patterns, just because these are like 2 really common ones that I would see, and different situations. So the first one, Maria recently came to Canada with her husband and 2 children. He came with a study permit, and she, as his dependent, had an open work permit, and the kids had study permits. They've applied for permanent residence, and that application is still in process. And now Maria has disclosed that she's being physically abused. She hasn't told anyone except for one friend. And she's really scared to leave because she doesn't want to jeopardize her permanent resident application. So what would you guys do? What would your first steps be in this situation?
Would like to with someone like about the situation and figure out the best way so she can do her application. Like there are some ways for
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, like the first thing is, what's the danger level today? Does she need to be referred to a shelter? Does she need to leave the situation today?
So we need to talk to her first, right?
Yeah,
With
like
her
if she's
no?
coming to you or her friend's coming to you, it's, here's the number for the local shelter, here's the number for police, or talk to the United Way hotline, because they're the experts.
Sorry.
I'm just kind of like disseminating the information. They're the experts on like what to do from a security standpoint to make sure this family is safe right now. And then the second step is, is there a lawyer that can help, or is there like a consultant that can help? And that she knows that this is an option.
In this case, should we advise her to go to the police first or to the shelter first?
I would probably talk to the shelter first, because they provide support in helping you go to the police.
Like, even if she went to the shelter and they see that they're gonna call the police, if you call the police, you're gonna go to the shelter.
Yeah.
Like they're
Connected, right?
Yeah. And the police, like, from my experience, the police have gone through trauma-informed counseling, and they're pretty good. I know in Fredericton and in St. John, I'm sure it must be the case at Moncton, but police departments typically have a dedicated officer for gender-based violence, and they got the training. So when they're talking to someone who's finally getting the courage to talk to a police officer, they're sensitive to how difficult it must be. And so it's not just an intimidating, let's go in the witness room and kind of grill them, it's they're coming at it from a completely different lens. The other one, and I've seen this at our recovery center a fair bit, is maybe the victim has no idea what their status is. And the first call might have been, like, if they call IRCC and try to figure out what's happening on the permanent resident application, IRCC is not going to tell them because they're not the principal applicant. So it's like under our privacy laws, they're not going to give that out, which is really challenging. But they should be able to get confirmation of their own status. And if they can't get it through the hotline, there is a separate application called a verification of status. And you can apply for that to literally ask IRCC, what is my status in Canada? And then they can come back and confirm what your status is. Because some people really don't know. Sometimes you can get a member of parliament to help, because they have that direct communication with someone in Ottawa as well. Yeah. But like how I would also approach it, if they're saying, I don't want to jeopardize my permanent resident status, obviously the choice is theirs, but in my mind, there's kind of 2 things they need to know. A, if they leave that relationship, have a duty to report to IRCC that you're no longer in that relationship, so you're not technically dependent anymore and you get removed. But B, at least there is a program potentially that you can get permanent residence independent of your partner because you're the victim. But it's having that conversation, what kind of evidence do you have? Because to your point about neglect, if it's a weak case, then they might not be able to get the TRP. They do refuse some of them. I mean, it's not a guarantee. The ones I've had, I mean, sadly, the abuse has gotten so bad that there's lots of evidence. But in other cases, they don't have that evidence.
Could they also start like with legal aid? They will look at legal aid in this
Well, legal
case?
aid could help them with that protection order, so then you're building the file, right? Because sometimes people might not feel comfortable leaving today, but you can help with the exit strategy. And so that would be building the case, okay, you need to go talk to a therapist or a social worker, we need to document it. take pictures if it happens again, confide in people. So then you might not be in a strong case today to file, but maybe in a month. But of course, safety is always number one. Like, you don't ever want to tell someone to stay in a relationship if it's not safe. And so this one's also like just a little bit different. So Sama was living an abusive relationship in Canada with a Canadian citizen. He promised he was going to sponsor her for permanent residence under the family class, and she's called the police several times on him. She's been getting counseling for PTSD and has been a client of a shelter in the past. She's lost her status in Canada and has been working without authorization. So she's terrified she's going to get put in removal proceedings because she's been working without a work permit. In this case, I had a very similar case and we were successful. So, post-traumatic stress disorder. So here, the first thing we did, we went to the police, we got the police report, and it was voluminous. We asked a social worker to write a letter confirming she was getting treatment for PTSD. We got a letter from the shelter, and it just literally confirmed she had been a client in the past, and she was still receiving ongoing support services. And we disclosed that she could work without authorization. We said literally she could not support herself without it. She had to flee this situation for her life. And then we included all kinds of information about her country of origin and why she could not leave, as well as evidence of showing like this was her aspiration when she came to Canada. She's on the path to healing, and this is what she would like to do in the future. She's not there yet, and she really needs help, and she's getting it here, but if she left, she wouldn't get that help. Okay? And that's it for me. Any other questions or comments?
In this case, are we sure the application will get approved or not? Because it's
No.
up to the agent, right?
It's up to the agent, and it's always that roll of the dice. So the problem is if you got to this point, like I would always look at other options, right? Like what are the other options first? Because I always like, if someone meets defined criteria, I'm gonna put them in a defined program that I know if you meet all this, you're gonna get X. But if they don't, and there's no other options, we're gonna do this. But again, I'm gonna look at like, what's the evidence here?
So we need to have a backup each time.
Try, yeah. And I mean, that's why they need to talk to like a lawyer or a consultant.
Do we have some statistics about the success rates?
No.
Okay.
No. I'm part of an immigration listserv, and so people share things, and I have seen recently people are saying they're seeing more refusals than in the past, but that makes sense given the climate that we're in right now. So I'm sure everyone in this room is aware, but just in case you're not, last fall, IRCC federally, and we just talked about this, but IRCC federally, they reduced their levels, their immigration levels going forward for the next few years. And so all that has a trickle-down effect. So if they cut it federally by a significant number, they also cut the provincial allocations by 50%. And they've reduced how many people can stay in Canada as temporary residents. And they've cut a lot of those kind of programs where you could switch different categories or go from a closed to an open work permit, like different things. So now you've got people that are desperate. There's lots of people whose work permits are going to expire in Canada who don't have a pathway. So unfortunately, like, and I've seen this in St. John, there's been a number of increased cases of gender-based violence coming through the Newcomer Center.
Because of the stress associated.
The stress,
yeah.
the stress is just exacerbating and making a bad problem worse. And also, there's going to be more refugee claims. I'm seeing a lot of calls right now. All of a sudden, people who have been here for a number of years now want to make a claim for refugee status. So it would make sense that there's going to be more refusals for these kinds of applications. They're going to look at it stricter to make sure it's genuine and what is the hard third-party evidence. And so if you don't have that third-party evidence, I think it's going to be a lot more difficult and it'll be a higher refusal rate.